All righty.
Cincinnati, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I know a lot of times you all come, but you have to lurk because you're working and things like that. So we still appreciate you being here today with us. I'm just opening up the social channels just in case people have questions on these channels. I'm able to say hello to everybody. Okay, I am ready to go.
Hi, Edward, Rancho Palos Verdes, California. Welcome.
Yes. All righty then. Well, let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 10K Project. We're the largest community of small dollar investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. And when we come together and we start funding our own businesses, we can profit from our own innovation, we can create jobs in the community, and we can work together to build Black wealth. Within the 10K Project, investments are as little as $100 per investment. We do not do groupthink here, meaning that the way that we work is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we invite a Black entrepreneur to come and to present their investment opportunity and their business to the entire community. And then the community asks that entrepreneur questions. And each individual person within the community has the ability to say, yes, I like that business. I want to invest in that business. And today's conversation is all about how that happens from an entrepreneur point of view. But I do want to say, if you're just intrigued and you want to be an investor, that is open to everyone as well. It's the10kproject.com. the10kproject.com for you to become a member. It is a one-time payment of $100, lifetime membership for you to become a member at the10kproject.com. I got my partner in crime here with me, Ms. Tawana Rivers. How are you today?
Just fine today.
Good, good. And we have one of the foremost crowdfunding experts on planet Earth here with us today, crowdfunding coach, Bill Houston. Hi.
The whole Earth, Bill.
The whole,
Hi,
yeah,
how you doing? You're gonna make me smile saying that, right?
Look, you better claim it, right? But it is true. So, so I know that you usually have a presentation, Bill. So what I'd like to do is just, first of all, have you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got involved with crowdfunding, give the family just a little bit of background knowledge about you.
Sure, be glad to do that. First, I'd like to say thank you all for starting the 10K Project, and thank you all for inviting me on here. I think this is so important, and I think that the 10K Project and investment crowdfunding go hand in hand in our community. So my name is Bill Houston. I was born and raised in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. So yay to whoever that was from Cincinnati. I now live in Louisville, Kentucky, and a real quick story and version of how I got interested in crowdfunding and introduced to crowdfunding at all. So my son and I, we had a business called H2 Communications, and we were doing video marketing. So my son, he would shoot and edit videos for small businesses, and then I would promote them on Twitter and Facebook. If you can imagine how long ago that was when there was only Twitter and Facebook, how far we've come since then. It's pretty amazing. And my son was in this program called CAP, Community Action Partnership. And the director, she said that if you shot a really cool video, people would fund your business on this platform called Kickstarter. So we shot 7 videos on a Saturday afternoon. She put them up on Kickstarter, and we didn't raise a single penny. And, so I looked into it, and I became very interested in it because the skill set that I had was a skill set that translated into the crowdfunding world. What business is never going to need funding? So what I did was I started working on campaigns. I would work on campaigns for free, whatever I needed to do to get into the industry and to learn more about it. And I decided that there was one fundamental rule about crowdfunding, and it doesn't matter what type of crowdfunding that is. And if you don't build an excited and engaged crowd, you will not get the funding that you desire. It's just that simple. There are all kind of compliance documents and things that need to be filled out, and it's great to have those, to have your offer up. But if there are no investors, you're just going to have an offer sitting there. And it's really important that all issuers really understand that you have to tap your network from the inside out. Getting a little ahead of myself. So as I move forward, this was about 2012. 2014, Inc. magazine named me one of the top 19 global crowdfunding experts to know. So that was a really nice honor. 2016 came around, and I was able to actually, make that transition from rewards crowdfunding into the equity crowdfunding space. I like to call it investments because it's not just equity, but, I was able to make that transition. In 2017, I had the opportunity to be in Los Angeles and to speak at the Crowd Invest Summit, which was booked as the largest crowd investment summit in the world. I don't know if that was true or not, but I say it because they said it. And, I was sitting there on stage, and, we were at the LA Convention Center, and it was packed from the stage to the wall. And one of the things that I noticed was that I could probably count the number of Black people on my hand that were sitting in that audience. And I thought, wow, the community that needs this the most is the community that is least represented. And then in that process, I met Linda Smith from Buy the Block. And, my mission has been to take investment crowdfunding, to my community ever since then in 2017. And as I said, it's a real honor to be here today, with someone who has that same, or a group of people who have that same vision with the 10K project.
Well, we thank you as well for your leadership within not only the crowdfunding space, period, but bringing it to the community as well. And many of you know that we got started because I'm a business plan writer, and I was saying for 3 years, hey, if we came together and we put in $100 each, we could raise $1 million and we could start funding our own businesses, because I also was experiencing people who had great ideas, but they could not get their businesses funded through angel investors and venture capital and the normal channels that we hear about. But I always felt like the real power was within us. And then I would also hear on the other side, and you can talk about this as well, Tawana and Bill, how many of us as regular investors felt that we could not get involved in investing in early stage companies, and that all of the riches were going to these big companies, but for the very few entrepreneurs that were funded, all the riches, the return on investment was going to, not us. It wasn't going to the community if that company ever was sold or did an initial public offering. So if either one of you want to talk about that before we jump into the presentation of how this is done, I just wanted to, state that too.
Yeah, I'll just add, I'll comment on what both of you just said. Bill talked about 2017. He acknowledged not seeing that many Black and brown faces in the audience. Well, there was a virtual crowdfunding summit last month. There were 40 speakers. They spoke for 40 hours, and not one Black person on the panel, on any of the various panels they had. So that tells me that there's still a lot of work to do, right? So from 2017 to 2021, not much has changed, right? And so we're definitely here to change that narrative, because we do represent, amazing businesses. We also represent investors who want to invest in those businesses. And we understand the business of crowdfunding. So you couldn't tell me they couldn't find Bill, right? He's the whole earth, right? He was the best guy on the whole earth. You tell me they couldn't reach out and find Bill, right? With 40 speakers, they couldn't find 41 and find one that was Black. So it tells me that we are undervalued in this space. And we know that when we talk about venture capital raise and how we don't get the funding we need anyway, and we'll go into some of that. So we know we're undervalued as businesses, but I think it's time for us to show them something different. And a lot of times you can do that by organizing within ourselves, stop asking for help, get the money that we need and the support that we need from our own communities, and teach people a different lesson. And I think Cherie is right. So often we have not had that early seat at the table for a lot of different reasons, right? A lot of it is, I think, is lack of education, knowing that somebody even had a table to sit at, right? And then the other part is not understanding how you fit there. And one of the things the Jobs Act, will go into that, one of the things it has done is it has leveled the playing field to some extent, because we get the same eyes on a campaign that somebody who could be, multimillionaire, they get the same eyes. And so, we can make change in that way.
Well,
Real
Bill,
quick,
we will let you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
oh no, I
ahead.
was just going to say real quick, Tawana said so much there, I could like not do the presentation today and just talk about what she said. Understanding that investment crowdfunding, the Jobs Act changed the rules. For 80 years, it was illegal to have a seat at the table, right? If you were a non-accredited investor, you were not allowed to have a seat at the table, period. So the change that came along with the Jobs Act is huge. And sometimes I think that because we're right here in the middle of it, we don't really understand the opportunities that exist here. One of the things that I like to talk about a lot, and Tawana really touched on that, is that investment crowdfunding, this is community-led economic development. I don't have to go to the bank, no foundation. I don't have to wait for anybody. I need to create an offer, find a platform, and build a crowd of investors that are ready to come and invest in me. And that's it. There are no laws that need to be changed today. We can do this today. And I think that is really important, that we understand this one thing, that as an issuer, your money is in your crowd.
So then tell everybody how, right? The people here are entrepreneurs today. They want to know how to do this. So I'm going to let you give your presentation here, Bill.
Okay, I will try to get through this presentation pretty quickly today so we can open this up for some Q&A. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so again, we're going to call this Investment Crowdfunding 101, building a Black-owned business crowdfunding ecosystem. And I think that when we talk about the ecosystem, that this is so important, understanding what an ecosystem is. And an ecosystem is going to be a self-sustaining system. So within this ecosystem, everything that we need is right there. We don't actually need to go outside that ecosystem in order to get the things that we need to grow, Black-owned businesses, Black-owned investment, and Black wealth. And I think that's a very important concept, that as we think about investment crowdfunding, what it is and what it can do for us, that we have to think about this. How do we build this ecosystem? How do I find an attorney within this ecosystem? How do I find a marketing person within this ecosystem? How do I find a CPA within this ecosystem? And this is an opportunity for us to build this self-sustaining system as we move forward. A little bit about me. I'll go through this, real quickly. Actually, I'm going to skip this slide because I already went through it. So why do we need this ecosystem in the Black community? And I always like to touch on these statistics because, I really want to drive this point home. And I want to say this: when we think about those technical assistance people who, we go to the SBDC, the Minority Business Development Score, they are always preparing us to get a business loan. But the reality of this is that Black businesses only receive about 2% of SBA loans from banks, and about 1% of venture funding from venture capitalists and angel investors. And one of the reasons behind that is because a lot of times our businesses don't necessarily meet that venture capital model. Venture capital is certainly not the end all to be all that people think that it is. It gets a lot of hype. In the media, there are a lot of dollars thrown around, but some of the downside of that is something to really be looked at, and to understand that maybe I don't even want venture capital, and at this point, investment crowdfunding may be a better place for me, because it's going to allow me as the issuer to hold more control while getting the investment dollars that I need. Another point that's really important is that Black-owned banks, they flourished in the 50s and the 60s, but that number of banks has decreased to very, very few. So there are very few Black banks that are actually able to, to provide loans for Black-owned businesses. And we know that the more traditional banks in the majority community are just not funding Black and brown businesses. These are realities that there are data points, many data points behind that, that you can find. So I always like to start out understanding where we're starting from, right? Because it's important that we know where we're starting from, so we know what direction to go in and how to get there. Something else that I think is really important is that when we think about middle class, and we've heard so much about middle class, and we are able to go to school today to get advanced degrees, and earn what appears to be a very nice salary. But what is very interesting is that there's something that they call the Black tax. I think it's a term that came from the South Africa. But a lot of times, because of the lack of wealth in our community, we have to take out more student loans. So, that salary that looks enormous initially, there are so many other things coming out of that salary that by the time we dwindle it down, we don't really have that much income. And then that income, or we have the income, but it's all going out, right, to fulfill debts. And then when we think about what really makes someone middle class, this statistic, I'm going to read this sentence here. White households earning middle class income own nearly 8 times as much wealth as Black families earning the same income. And that is really important, and that's really important because what we're purchasing, with our income may not necessarily be what these white families are purchasing, right? Now, there are a lot of reasons behind that are kind of outside of the scope of this, right? We know about redlining and the continuation of redlining in our communities. Houses in our communities are 30% less for the same house, same square footage, in Black communities than in white communities. We know that we are a third less likely to be able to even attain a mortgage. So there are a lot of reasons behind this, and then a lot of, one of the big reasons that we don't think about is that the discrimination has gone on for so long, in this country for, hundreds of years, and that a lot of wealth has passed from one generation to the next. And that's something that's really important. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that today, is what that intergenerational wealth looks like and why that is so important and why we have to focus on building wealth and not just income as we move forward. The road to zero wealth, I read this, and a good friend of mine, we were talking about this, and this really jumps out, at me as we talk about wealth and we think about why it is so important for us to build wealth. So in this report, it would take 228 years for the average Black family to reach the level of wealth that the average white family owns today, right now, 228 years. And if we continue on the same path that we are on right now, by 2053, the median wealth for the Black household will be 0. That is staggering. That is frightening. Because, with no wealth and what wealth does for someone, it's scary. I mean, we would almost become a non-economic entity, in this country. Very frightening information. So investment crowdfunding is community capital. One of the things that I like, I found this sign here, and I put this up, and it says, "Invest as if Black lives matter." And I think that is so important, to our community to really start to think about that, right? If there are Black businesses and we don't support those Black businesses, we know from our history here who's going to support those Black businesses. Probably no one. So, if we invest Black then it makes a lot more sense to buy Black, right? Because now there is a financial reward tied to my investing and supporting this Black business. And I think that that is a very important part of the investment crowdfunding. And what I like to talk about, what is the return on crowd? What is the return of crowd? As I speak to issuers, they, don't just think about, the capital that you raise. Obviously, that's important, or you wouldn't be crowdfunding. But also think about the number of people who invest in your business. Those people becoming customers of your business. Those customers and investors then becoming your number one brand ambassadors. So there's not just a return on capital, but there's this return on the crowd, or the return on community that is very important. And as we move forward, let's always keep that in mind as an issuer, that yes, I definitely need to raise funds. I definitely need to see what my ROI is, but what is my ROC? New rules in investment crowdfunding. This was a game changer, in my opinion. In March of this year, the maximum amount that you were able to raise went from $1,070,000 to $5 million that you can raise directly from the crowd. $5 million in a lot of places. That's a lot of money, and that's some money that you could really do some things with, especially from the real estate perspective, and from a startup business perspective. That's a game changer for me. Investment crowdfunding eliminates the needs for banks and VCs in the early stage funding. That small sentence is so vital for our community to really understand and internalize and become a part of our community as we think about the economic development that goes on in our community. Because what this statement is saying is that we can look inward. As Cherie just said, we can look inward for the funding, the early stage funding for our companies. If we need a business in our community, we can come together with a shared vision of what that business looks like, get that business funded, become an equity holder in that business, become a customer of that business, and also become a brand ambassador for that business. And what happens is that the capital from that business remains in the community, it circulates through the community, and that is how you begin the process of building wealth. When you think about retail leakage and how bad that is in many of our communities, if I continue to spend my money outside the community and there's no money really coming back into my community, then eventually one community is going to have all the wealth, and my community is not going to have any of the wealth. And for so many years, there was nothing we could really do about that. But today, in the era of investment crowdfunding, we can change that game because your money is in your crowd. Some of the benefits of investment crowdfunding. Investment crowdfunding presents a chance to earn some substantial money and, of course, help a business that you believe in. So, as Cherie was saying, if there's a business that has an IPO or some type of exit and you're a shareholder, then you get to share, right, in the spoils of what just happened, right? However that business, went public, or what their exit looked like. You get to share in that because you are now an owner or a loaner. And I think that is such an important concept in our community, to be an owner or a loaner, because for so many years, right, we have been on the other side of that. I read once a long time ago that there's only one kind of magic in the world, and the only kind of magic is compound interest. And, if you're on the right side of compound interest, it is beautiful. If you're on the wrong side of compound interest, it is deadly for you financially. So again, the other benefit of investment crowdfunding is that any person over the age of 18 who wants to invest, they can invest. And many of these investment opportunities are $100, a minimum of $100. So, that is a really powerful way to kind of, dip your toe into the pool and start to become an investor. I am a firm believer in the only way to be a carpenter is to hammer nails. The only way to be an investor is to invest. Surely you need to read, learn, and study this, but in order to be an investor, you have to practice investing. This is how you can connect with me. My website is crowdmax.com, Twitter handle crowdmax, LinkedIn, you can find me at Bill Houston 1, and YouTube, my YouTube channel is Bill Houston at CrowdMax. So I know I went through that really quickly, and the reason I did was because I would really love to make this very engaging so that we can talk about this and what this looks like from a practical aspect.
Absolutely. Okay, so then let's start off with some practicum. Who's eligible to do this, and like, what's the best type of business for equity crowdfunding, and what are some businesses that maybe do better with rewards based, and then some businesses that maybe want to consider other types of funding?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I would say that the businesses that are best suited for investment crowdfunding are going to be businesses that are consumer facing. The reason they're going to be the best ones is because the consumers are going to be a lot of the investors. They're going to be the people who buy the products, and they're going to be the people who recommend those products to people. So I think that the question about, what is the best type of crowdfunding, whether it's rewards crowdfunding or investment crowdfunding, that more depends on where you are in your developmental stage. Are you ready? Do you have a product? Are you generating revenue, with that product? And, if you're pre-revenue, if you maybe even just have a prototype and you're not even ready to necessarily start selling that, then I would definitely say rewards crowdfunding. I definitely have my own penchant for rewards crowdfunding, as I was in that space for many, many years. I saw a lot of very successful businesses get started there. So, rewards crowdfunding has a role. Rewards crowdfunding has a real role in the Black community, because a lot of times we don't have that friends and family round, right? I can't go to my Uncle Joe and say, hey, can you write me a $10,000 check? Because Uncle Joe's probably going to say, well, I was wondering if I could get $10 from you. So, we don't have that a lot of times. So rewards crowdfunding can be a very important step on that ladder to getting a business funded.
So,
Right.
Bill, I want
But
to
I will
actually,
say,
oh, I was going to say, can I ask your question a little differently? So we talked
yes.
about the type of business. What's the type of founder that is a good candidate for equity crowdfunding?
So I would say this about a founder, that equity crowdfunding there's no magic here, right? That this is hard work. You have to be organized. You have to be willing to work hard. You have to kind of understand marketing, or have a team of people around you who understand marketing and how to market. So that's going to be very important. It's going to be important that the issuer or founder is someone who is not afraid to get out front and to talk about their business, and really talk about their business. You get so much bad press about these guys with really big egos. But if you want to do investment crowdfunding, you need to find an ego somewhere, because anytime you are in a room anywhere, you need to be talking about your business, how your business is going to change the world, how it's going to change your community, whatever it is. You really have to promote your business. You have to understand your business. You have to understand your industry, right? You have to understand the market. Again, there's no magic here. You have to have a business plan, right, in order to do this. And when I say a business plan, that's not so much a written piece of paper, but that is you putting in the work and understanding the industry you're in, understanding the market that you're in, where it's going. Is it headed in this direction? Is it headed in that direction? It is very important. To me, a lot of times when you go to the bank wants you to have a business plan. They're not necessarily in the business of understanding entrepreneurship and markets and where those things are going. They want to know, can you repay the debt? Right. And to me, that is not the most important aspect of the business plan. The most important aspect of the business plan is really understanding your business, the industry you're in, the market that you're going to attack, how you're going to do that, what that's going to look like. So I think that you have to be a very hands-on, a very active, a very studious person, to run an investment crowdfunding offer or campaign. You have to be willing to learn and to make adjustments along the way, right? Because so much of this is digital marketing that, you're going to be able to look at data in real time and then have to make decisions. So I think that you need someone who is very hardworking, was very intelligent, was very willing to make the changes that they really need to make and do what's in front of them to keep this thing moving.
Right. I do want to say that I believe that people who have B2B or business to business companies can still thrive depending on the type of business. I was listening to the CEO of Republic, Ken Wynn, on a podcast, and he said that, if the business is simple to understand, then it does well. And I'll give you an example. We do our Bet on Black pitches every Tuesday. Shout out to all the Bet on Black entrepreneurs. And one was Relay on Demand. And that is an app started by a Black man who I think his father was in trucking, Tawan, if I'm correct. His father was an 18-wheeler truck driver.
Father and his
Williams is
father-in-law.
here on YouTube, so she's gonna love this. His father was an 18-wheeler truck driver, and he discovered a huge issue in the industry was a lot of these truck drivers want to freelance, and they want to kind of work on demand, and they're willing to move from truck to truck and owner to owner in order to do that. And he started this app that matches truck owners to freelance drivers that want to get in. Let's say they want to do a haul that's 3 days and then come back home, and they don't want to miss the kids' soccer games and things like that. Very compelling pitch, B2B play. I will admit I'm an investor, because as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh, I get it. And so many people in the 10K community got it, and he had a successful raise as well. So I just don't want people to think that if you don't have a consumer facing product, that it's not going to work. But it does need to be, if you're going to do B2B, it does need to be something that people can easily grasp and understand, is my understanding from the industry as well. Bill, did you want to say anything else with regards to that?
No, I mean, I agree with you. The space where I work mostly has been in that customer facing, and I've been able to find success there. But what you said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So then, do people have to have good credit? Do they have to have a lot of money? The typical questions that people may be asked at a bank or someplace like that. Can you talk a little bit more about, the entrepreneur's personal situation, financially, credit-wise, things like that, and where they need to be a good candidate for this?
Yeah, sure. So, your credit score is not necessarily going to impact your ability to raise capital through investment crowdfunding. I would probably venture to say that you want to at least be in a financial situation where, you can dedicate some time to this. Because that's going to be very important. You're really going to need the time. But again, what you have to have to have a successful investment crowdfunding campaign is you have to have a shared vision, and with that shared vision, be able to build a crowd to excite and engage the people around you. Now, as you move through this process, I've mentioned on a couple of times that you're going to have to do some digital marketing. So, I have yet to run an offer where we have not done some Facebook ads to reach out to people. So you're going to need a budget. Do you need a lot of money? That's very relative. I know some of my colleagues in this space, they will only work with people who are willing to run $5,000 to $7,000 worth of ads, per month. That's a lot of money, from my perspective. But I've done as little as $2,000 to $1,500 a month in Facebook ads and still been successful, with running those offers. But yeah, you're definitely going to need to have a budget. Right. And within that budget, you're going to have to pay for some digital marketing, unless you're able to do it all. And you're still going to have to pay for ads. There is some software in that digital marketing realm that probably make a lot of sense to pay for. One I would say is that is using the LinkedIn Navigator. It is a very powerful tool to be able to find investors on LinkedIn, but it's not cheap. It's not a cheap tool. And I had a business mentor who used to say to me all the time, maybe the question isn't, can you afford this, but can you not afford it? So, when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, there's going to have to be a budget and some investment in this. This is not free. No one is giving away free money, right? Whether it's the bank or, or crowdfunding, you're going to have to be able to tap your network, right? From the inside out. You really want to be able to get that train out of the station before you open this thing publicly and let people start to see that. So as you go through that friends and family round and you get those commitments from people, you want to try to get up around 25 to 30% of your raise before you do that. And I want everybody to hear that this is not easy, that this is hard work, that you have to be able to tap your inner circle in order to raise somewhere around 25, 30% of your total goal in order to move this thing forward. Now, without getting too deep into this, there are strategic ways that you can move forward through an investment crowdfunding offer, right? You don't have to start out at $5 million. You have 365 days to raise that money. So there are strategies that you can use around raising that money that's going to help you be able to get to that $5 million mark. So, keep that in mind, but definitely you're going to need something to get out of the gate. And I try to tell that to everyone so you don't come in, with the mistaken thought that, that this is easy, that when I go to the platform is going to fund this for me, because they are not. If you don't have some support when you get to the platform, you're not going to have any support when you leave the platform.
Yeah, Bill, that's a great point, because even many of the platforms are requiring that you meet a certain threshold before they put their network behind you. And even once they do that, there's like tiers and levels to it, right? So if you raise X amount of money, they'll open up this amount of their network. Then if you raise more, then they'll open up a larger. So even they have stipulations to this. It's definitely not, you go on one of these platforms, and even though they say they've got, 100,000 investors, that they're opening up their mailing list to you, because that's not how it works. And I've heard that from numerous founders that I've talked to on various different of the big platforms too, the top 3 even, they've all said this about them. In regards to some of the other expenses, you talked about marketing, but there's also legal fees and accounting fees, right? You have to have audited. If you want to raise $5 million from people, you have to have audited financials, right? We need to make sure the books are in order. These are securities, right? You have investors, so you're selling securities, which means you need an SEC attorney. You may then also need just a general business attorney if you don't already have one, right? So there are some expenses that you have to incur in order to be successful, and to be a successful business that now has taken on investors, because that within itself now is another job responsibility, right? It's different when you're just figuring out how to pay the bank back, but now you're running a business with possibly thousands of people in mind, because they're your investors.
Tawana, that's really interesting, because I focused so much on marketing that I did leave out those other 2, and I appreciate you catching that for me. I had an email this morning from a former client that we raised money for, and it was an investor relations question. And investor relations is a requirement for raising this capital. So you don't just get this money from these investors and then you never talk to them again, speak to them again, or engage with them. It is required that you have this ongoing relationship with them. And as you build out your offer, you need to think about, who is that person going to be? How are we going to set up this strategy to deal with these people, with these investors? How do we deal with them? How do we keep them engaged with what it is that we're doing? How do we keep them informed with what we've done with their money? Those are going to be things that are going to be very important. And one reason they're going to be important is that if you keep your investors engaged and you let them know that you are doing great things with their money, they're going to continue to tell people about that, and you're going to create more sales. But definitely don't forget that you have to do investor relations as well.
Yes. So Alvin has a question here in Zoom. What is the difference between crowdfunding and investment or equity crowdfunding? What's the difference?
So just a real strict line there is with investment crowdfunding, you are selling securities. So that as Tawana said, there's gonna be a requirement that you have a lawyer there, a CPA there, because now you have moved over from donations or pre-selling a product to actually selling legal securities to people. So that is the biggest difference. Now, there are different ways that reward crowdfunding works and how investment crowdfunding works. On the portals, the portals themselves have a lot of regulations and requirements that they have to meet. So those requirements are going to trickle down to you as the issuer. So with a Kickstarter campaign, I could open a Kickstarter campaign tomorrow. It doesn't cost me anything. And there's nothing, right? Kickstarter, they look at it, they approve it, and I'm off and running. Now, chances are it doesn't really work like that, but that's how it could work, right? There are no requirements that have to be met, and that is certainly not going to be true for an investment crowdfunding. As Tawana said, you have to have audited books. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, would you invest in a company that, didn't have any books? That'd be a frightening thought, right? So, you have to have that. You have to have a CPA. You're going to need to, get these compliance documents filled out. And you're going to have to build out your offer as well. And then even to the marketing side, right? As a marketer, there are things that I can and can't say about the offer. There are things that I can and can't say at particular times, right? Pre-Form C, post-Form C. One of the things that I think is really outstanding about crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding, is that prior to investment crowdfunding, you had to pack up your roadshow and your presentation, and you had to take it on the road and go to people, talk to them about your company. And, you may have to talk to 10, 15, 20 people, and you still may not get an investment. But what happens with investment crowdfunding is that funnel is flipped upside down. And now you take all the people and you drive them to one platform. And that one platform is where all the answers are. That one platform is the only place that you can invest. And you may not think that's important, but let me tell you an experience that I had. So there was someone who was probably technology challenged, and they weren't able to re-sign or countersign their offer papers and their documents. And what happened was they started this process of a complaint. And because of the regulations, which prior to this, I would have said there were too many regulations. And then I got a really good understanding of why those regulations are there. And a lot of times you're dealing with investors who are inexperienced, investors who don't realize that I can lose my total investment, right? That is the reality of this, right? You don't want to invest the rent money. You want to invest money that you can have over the long term, and you want that money to be money that you can afford to lose. But anyway, because of all the regulations that were in place, the company, the issuer, was not responsible for any of the complaints that this particular investor had. And the reason for that is because all the investment takes place on the platform, on the portal. That's where it happened. So the company had nothing to do with any of that. So I had to kind of eat my words there and say, you know what, I'm glad these regulations exist, and that, that they're not overregulated. And maybe that's why I'm not an SEC attorney. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Yeah. And I'll just say, for anyone hearing about crowdfunding for the first time today, this is a growing business. So in April, the crowdfunding industry raised $44 million for businesses. In March, that number was 59 million. So that's a month, right? And this is, and we're still early. This is still early in the process. I mean, the new regs just came out March 15th. So think about that. We're really early in the how long you've been able to raise $5 million. So and this is across all crowdfunding platforms, but that's a lot of money being raised for businesses. The other thing we know to be true is that historically, many of these platforms have not had great representation from people of color on their platforms. So when I talk about that type of money being raised, and yet again, we're not represented, we need to fix all of these things within this industry. And so, we need to make sure that Black founders are getting what they need, they're getting support that they need, so that these platforms feel more comfortable allowing them on to raise. Because I think, some of those bad behaviors in that whole venture capital world is kind of rolling into crowdfunding a bit, where we're not getting the respect that we deserve, and the belief in the fact that we too can run billion-dollar organizations.
So with that then, Tawana, why don't you tell people how the 10K project helps with that?
Absolutely. So, we have, from an entrepreneur standpoint, how we can assist on this crowdfunding journey is first of all, we offer currently we offer some business development webinars, sessions like this, sessions that help entrepreneurs grow their business. We've had sessions about marketing. We actually had a whole month about marketing. We've done trademark. We've done, we have accountants that come and talk to us on a regular basis to help you understand how to manage a book. So all of those things from a business development standpoint, the 10K community is providing information and education around that. We're also working currently on a crowdfunding accelerator course. So that's something that's going to be able to get you connected to someone like Bill, who's an amazing, we heard, right, on the earth, the best crowdfunding coach on the earth, okay, to connect you with someone like Bill that's going to be able to, once you get yourself educated, to be able to hold your hand through your campaign and make sure you meet certain milestones, goals. The other thing we do is we provide a network for you, right? An ecosystem for you. So as you're growing and scaling the business and you start to need more services and products, then you come to the 10K project, and we may have many of those things that you need, right? So when you need the accountant, you come to our skills database looking for an accountant. And guess what? We've got some, right? And so you can keep, the goal is to keep that dollar circulating, that Black dollar circulating in the Black community for longer than the 6 hours that the stats currently say it circulates. The other thing we do for you is we bring you some of that crowd, right? You still have a responsibility to get some crowd yourself, right? Bill talked about that. But we bring you the crowd. We get eyes on your campaign so that you can be more successful. And not just from an investor standpoint, but also from a consumer standpoint, right? So we're not just bringing you investors. We're bringing you investors and potentially customers, or customers and potentially investors. And as Cherie started out, it's not groupthink. You present. You apply to present, and if you're accepted, you present to our community of investment members, and then they determine if you would be the kind of founder they want to invest in, if your product or service fits inside their personal portfolio. But the goal here at the 10K project from an entrepreneur standpoint is to lift you up, to support you, and to do everything we can to help you be successful, because we believe that truly Black businesses will change how America sees us, and it will also help us close that wealth gap that we keep hearing about.
Absolutely. So Alvin has another question here. Will he need a private placement memorandum doing equity crowdfunding?
Yes. Yeah, that it is that. The reason you need the private placement memorandum is because this is a private deal, right? It's not gone on the market yet. So absolutely, you absolutely have to have that. If I could kind of piggyback real quickly what Tawana was saying. And I think this is so important. And I had an opportunity to work for a real estate syndication group one time. I was doing some social media for them. And the thing that amazed me about them was they were putting up these deals, and these deals were getting funded right there inside the room. And that was the first time I'd ever seen syndication, right? A real syndicate. And I was so blown away by that. And it's always kind of stuck in my mind. And when I first learned about the 10K project, I said, finally, right? There's an opportunity for, Black investor syndication to be able to move things forward. We saw when the $5 million limit when it was raised to the $5 million limit, there were people who were funded overnight. In 24 hours, they raised $5 million. And there's no reason why we as a community cannot find ourselves there. If a business is vetted and we like that business, that we could fund that without them ever leaving the room.
Absolutely. That's actually one of our goals, our big goals that Tawana and I talked about. We sat down and we wrote some decade-long goals, and that was one of them that I had. And we both talked about it and agreed to it, that we want to be the place where if we need to raise $5 million in 24 hours, it could be done through the power of the 10K project. But it's going to take, obviously, community in order for us to do it. And then when Bill and I were talking on Sunday, we both agreed that we can have 1 million Black people, or just 1 million investors, period, who care about Black entrepreneurship. We can have that within the 10K project and within the 10K project community. Then we don't have to go anywhere, to ask for our businesses to be funded. We can start funding our own businesses. We also had on Monday the anti-school to prison pipeline discussion. And we took it from the point of view of being investors and entrepreneurs, and how do we tackle this issue? I personally believe that part of our unemployment issues and things like that is because we don't have enough businesses that can employ young people, give them internships, et cetera. So this ends up being, one big cycle and circle that we're a part of. And the final thing that I will say is, you're here today because you are interested in being an entrepreneur that pitches. However, this is an ecosystem. So tomorrow you may be an entrepreneur. The next day you may be the investor that's putting in a couple $100 into a company. And then the following day, you may hear a Bet on Black pitch and say, hey, I have a skill set that can help that entrepreneur reach their next milestone. So I just want people to think about every way that you can work within the system, so that, our internal system, so that we can all be successful no matter what. I'll throw it out to either one of you. I know I said a lot there.
Yeah, I'll jump in and then we can let Bill close. But I agree 100%. We focused on the entrepreneur kind of perks that we give within the 10K project, but at our core, we are a group of entrepreneurs, investors who love Black people, and we want to help. We want to grow wealth for our families. And so this is the place, if you feel like you are like-minded, this is the place where you absolutely want to be. We're not trying to get rich here. The membership fee is $100 a lifetime. And I see we've got a couple of members in the chat, in the participants here. I'm gonna pick on you, Latrice. The $100 per lifetime, I feel like we give more than we take, without a doubt. And I've said that before, and it's because I really mean it. I mean, we're teaching about alternative investments. We're bringing amazing guests. Some even have celebrity, right? But some are everyday people like us who have found a way to have success. There's so many sessions and so many things that we're teaching within the community. Latrice said definitely. Brenda said very true. So, I just want you to consider even joining us to be a member, because you may say, well, I'm interested in crowdfunding, but I'm not sure if I'm ready. Well, you join us, you stay in the network, you continue to learn, you start watching these Bet on Black pitches and see what the other founders are doing. As an entrepreneur myself, I've learned so much from what I need to know about my business because of what these entrepreneurs know about theirs, right? The questions people are asking them. I remember doing the first pitch, and some of the questions I was like, I don't even know what that was. I was jotting down, people doing acronyms. I was writing that down. People were talking about things. I was like, oh, I got to research that. I'm learning how to be a better entrepreneur by watching and being exposed to these entrepreneurs. That within itself would be worth, it's like $100 lifetime masterclass, right? Where you're learning from people who are already doing it. And so just that alone is a reason to join us. But I can talk forever about why join us, but because we're great. But ultimately we're here for you. We're here to serve, and we truly, truly need to close this wealth gap, because my children's children need us to. Your children's children need us to. Bill, you want to close us out and give your information again on how they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, you guys said so much today. And this 10K project is so important. So anybody who's on today, if you email me at billhouston@crowd-max.com, I will send you over a free ebook, for being on the show and participating in this today. And the one thing that I really want to piggyback on that Cherie said is, I believe we would be amazed at the number of social issues in our community that would be solved when we strengthen ourselves economically, right? That is just a reality of it, that, with that economic strength, so many other issues would just disappear.
I agree 1,000%, a zillion percent with you. And we've had that conversation as well. So Dale, thank you so much. You said you're joining today. Oh, Dale left, unfortunately, but Dale's probably moving to the website to be a member. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. And yes, we are starting that accelerator program. We don't have a date yet. We, have our lesson plan that we're working on, and it's 70% done. And we're going to be, hustling in order to get that up.
Bill, they're asking for you to put
everybody.
your contact information up. Slide again one more time.
Yeah, if you could put that slide up then for everybody, Bill. And
can you see that, or am I not sharing my screen?
No, you're not sharing it. You need to share. Thank you so much, Bill.
Righty, thank you.
So everybody can do a screen capture of this, so that way you are able to connect with Bill. And on Monday, Tawana and I are talking about equity crowdfunding from an investor point of view. Even if you're just an entrepreneur and you, if you are interested in being a Bet on Black pitch presenter, it would be helpful for you to come and hear this lesson from the investor point of view, so that way you know what people are learning on the other side. So that's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can go to the10kproject.com in order to register for that. Okay. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Bill, Tawana, you got anything else?
Happy Mother's Day to any mother.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. Yes, absolutely. All righty then, everybody. Thank you so much. See you on Monday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.